My name is Naomi Ramirez. I'm 29 years old and I live in Charleston, South Carolina. I was raised to be the perfect daughter of Charleston society, private school, cotillions, charity balls, the whole 9 yards. But none of it prepared me for what I went through last Christmas. It started at dinner. My father, Charles, sat at the head of the table, stiff and unreadable. My brother Brandon was on his third whiskey and laughing too loudly. My mother, Sylvia Prescott Ramirez, the queen of Charleston society, held her wine glass like it was a scepter. And I was about to tell them the most important news of my life. "I'm pregnant," I said, my voice quiet but clear. The entire table froze. Sylvia didn't blink. She set her glass down hard enough to crack the stem. "You're pregnant with his child," she hissed. "You and that loser are dead to me." The words hit harder than any slap. That loser was Elijah, the man I married 6 months ago. A carpenter. A kind, soft-spoken man who builds custom furniture from reclaimed wood and smells like cedar and sunlight. He's the love of my life. I stood, left a gift-wrapped box on the table and walked out. No screaming, no goodbyes, just that box and what was inside it. Want to know what was in the box? Don't worry, we'll get there. But first, you need to understand the venom that brewed beneath the surface of my family and how I nearly let it poison my future. Growing up in Charleston's historic district, I lived in a house with white columns and whispers behind every door. My mother, Sylvia, cared more about appearances than people. Her life revolved around garden club rivalries, charity luncheons, and keeping her name in the right mouths at the country club. She had plans for me: marry a banker or a surgeon, host holiday parties with hand-stitched napkins, produce polished grandbabies she could parade like trophies. I played along until I met Elijah Knight. We met when I hired him to restore an old writing desk I bought at a flea market. He came in smelling like pine and varnish, with calloused hands and eyes that actually saw me, not the debutante, not the heiress, but me. I offered him coffee, and he offered me honesty. That was new. He wasn't impressed by my last name. He wasn't trying to marry into my family. He showed up, worked hard, and listened when I talked. After years of suitors who treated me like an investment portfolio, Elijah felt like a heartbeat. When I introduced him to my family, the performance began. "Isn't woodworking more of a hobby?" Sylvia asked during dinner, cutting her steak with the same cold precision she used on people. "Do you have employees or is it just you?" Brandon added, smirking. Elijah answered every question calmly. Said he owned his workshop, had contracts with historic restorers, and planned to open a storefront by summer. My father said nothing but kept sipping his whiskey, watching Elijah like a hunter stalks prey. Later that night, Sylvia cornered me in the kitchen. "You can't be serious, Naomi. What would people think? You're really willing to trade your future for a man who works with his hands." "I work with my hands," I said. "I'm an interior designer, remember?" She rolled her eyes. "That's a hobby, not a legacy." That's when I saw it. It didn't matter who Elijah was. It mattered what he wasn't. We eloped 3 months later on Folly Beach at sunset. His mother cried. Mine refused to take my calls. I sent her photos anyway. She never responded. For a while, I tried to build a bridge. I invited them over, sent holiday cards, even offered to host brunch. Silence. Then I got pregnant. I was terrified to tell her, but some stupid part of me still believed that grandmother would override social climber. It didn't. Instead, she tried to bribe me. She offered to pay for other options, suggested I could always start over, and when I refused, she screamed that I was disowned. That's when I decided, if I couldn't earn her love, I'd at least earn my freedom. So I started gathering evidence. Emails, texts, phone recordings. But the goldmine came from an unlikely source: Brandon's girlfriend, Allies. One night over drinks, Allies let something slip. "Your mom's been hiding some serious family skeletons. She's terrified you'll find out." I offered her a trade. Silence in exchange for the truth. She sent me screenshots, financials, court settlements. A letter from a woman named Marlene DeSoto. Turns out, my mother had a half-sister she paid off to disappear. She'd gotten pregnant at 16, and Sylvia's father, my grandfather, sent the girl away to avoid scandal. Sylvia kept paying her hush money long after he died. Oh, and that scholarship fund Sylvia was so proud of. Half the donations went into offshore accounts. I traced every cent. I printed it all, packaged it on a USB. and wrote a letter explaining every betrayal she'd committed, from disowning her own blood to embezzling charity funds. Then I wrapped it in silver foil with a white ribbon and dropped it on the Christmas table after she exiled me from her life. 3 days after Christmas, my phone rang. Blocked number. I didn't answer. Then came the email from her lawyer. The subject line, urgent regarding family estate discrepancies. She opened the box. I don't know if she expected jewelry or some teary apology letter begging for forgiveness. What she got was her entire reputation, neatly organized in digital folders titled Fraud, Extortion, Hidden Trusts, and Sister You Erased. Inside, the letter I wrote didn't ask for reconciliation. It told her who I had become now that I no longer needed her permission to exist. I said, "You disown me? Good. Now you can't legally challenge what comes next." See, my grandfather, whom I adored, quietly changed his will the year before he died. He never liked the way Sylvia treated people, especially me. He added a clause that left control of the family trust not to my mother, but to his most emotionally capable direct descendant. That descendant was me. But it came with a condition. The inheritance would only activate if my mother tried to disinherit me. She triggered it. By cutting me out on Christmas Day, she legally removed herself from the line of succession. And now I had access to the Prescott Foundation's silent assets, real estate, endowments, investments. Everything Sylvia had built her life and reputation around. Gone. I used it differently. I increased the scholarship payouts and added new recipients from low-income families across Charleston. I publicly shifted funds from society luncheons to local domestic violence shelters. I made damn sure every press release listed my name as the new executive trustee. The local paper ran a feature titled, "A Modern Prescott, Naomi Ramirez Reshapes Charleston Legacy." The look on Sylvia's face when she realized she'd exiled herself from her own empire. I can only imagine it, because I blocked her number before the ink on the article dried. But that wasn't the end. 2 months later, Brandon showed up at our house. Not drunk, not smirking, just hollow. "I screwed up," he said, standing on our porch like a man without a home. "I didn't know Mom was hiding all that, and now Dad's gone." "Gone where?" I asked. "Florida, with his assistant. They filed for divorce. He left Mom everything, except the debts. She's drowning." I didn't say anything. He added, "She's been asking around. Trying to find a way to sue you. Says you manipulated Grandpa in his final days." That was rich, considering she'd tried to force an abortion for status points. "She also knows about Elijah's record," he said quietly. I froze. "What record?" "What record?" I asked, the air turning thick around me. Brandon shifted uncomfortably. "It was from years ago, way before you met him. He got arrested during a protest outside a courthouse in Atlanta. It was about police brutality. He wasn't violent, but he got charged with obstruction." My heart sank, not because Elijah hadn't told me he had. The night we got engaged, he sat me down and explained everything. That he'd been 21, hot-headed, and standing up for his best friend who got beat up by cops during a traffic stop. He'd spent a night in jail, record sealed. Charges dropped after community service. But Sylvia, she saw any imperfection as leverage. "She hired a pie," Brandon continued. "She's building some fantasy case that he's dangerous, unfit to be a father, says she'll go to court and try to get custody of your baby." That was when I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because Sylvia had finally gone from emotionally abusive to flat-out delusional. "She's trying to steal my child. She thinks if she proves you're unstable, postpartum depression, irrational behavior, whatever, she can at least embarrass you publicly. Maybe get the trust revoked." Brandon handed me a manila envelope. Inside, photos, surveillance. One of me at the park with Elijah and our baby. One of me crying in my car outside the pediatrician's office. One where Elijah was holding Lily and handing her to me, with the caption "Exchange of Custody" scribbled in red ink like we were divorced co-parents. "I'm sorry," Brandon said. "I didn't know how far she'd go. But Naomi, she's unraveling." That night, I sat across from Elijah in our living room, the soft hum of the baby monitor behind us. He didn't flinch when I told him, just nodded. "She's trying to bury herself," he said, his voice calm. "We just need to hand her the shovel." And that's when the plan started. We weren't going to hide. We were going to expose her legally, publicly, permanently. It began with a meeting at the local family court office. I filed a proactive custody protection motion, laying out every false claim I expected her to make, backed by Elijah's clean record, sworn character references from his clients, and a notarized statement from his parole officer confirming his community service had been fulfilled 12 years ago. Then I sent a copy of that motion directly to her attorney with a personal note stapled to the front. Next time you want to lie in court, make sure I haven't already filed first. But I wasn't done. I contacted a local journalist who had once profiled my mother for a puff piece on Charleston socialites. This time, I offered her the story of a woman who weaponized wealth and status to try and destroy her own daughter's life. Photos, bank statements, emails. Even Brandon agreed to speak off the record, but enough to confirm she was leaking private medical files from her sources at my old hospital. The article ran with the headline, "The Southern Belle's Mask. Inside the Fall of Sylvia Prescott Ramirez." The article dropped on a Friday morning. By noon, Sylvia's phone was dead. By 5, the country club had issued a statement, regretting her membership. By Sunday, 3 local charities she'd chaired removed her from their boards, citing ethical conflicts. She tried to fight back, claimed the story was exaggerated, that her daughter was unstable, that those people had manipulated me. But no one was listening anymore. People weren't shocked by her cruelty, they were shocked by how thoroughly I exposed it. And I wasn't finished. 2 weeks later, the IRS opened a preliminary audit on the Prescott Foundation. Turns out she'd been repurposing grant money for nearly a decade. Her mansion, second mortgage, her beloved Mercedes, leased in her brother's name. Everything she used to keep up appearances was crumbling, and now the public knew it. I didn't need to confront her, but fate handed me the chance. It happened at a community fundraiser for the Charleston Women's Shelter, the very one that now had a brand new wing, courtesy of my trust. I was there with Elijah, holding Lily, surrounded by volunteers. And there she was. Sylvia standing in the parking lot, hair unbrushed, makeup cracked, staring at me like a ghost seeing the living. She walked toward me, trembling. "Elijah," she said, "please, I need to talk to Naomi." He stepped between us. "She doesn't talk to liars." Sylvia's eyes filled with tears. "She's my daughter." "No," I said, stepping forward. "You disowned your daughter at Christmas. You don't get her back in October." "She's my grandchild," she whispered. I looked at Lily, who was babbling and reaching for a balloon. "She'll never know your name," I said. "She'll never know what it's like to be judged before she speaks, and she'll never beg for love from someone who's too cold to give it." Sylvia crumbled to the sidewalk, sobbing, but no one rushed to help her. No one. Because Charleston remembered. Later that night, Brandon sent me a photo. It was the front of her old estate, now with a for sale sign out front. She'd moved into a 2-bedroom condo on the outskirts of town. No servants. No silver trays, just Sylvia, and her scrapbook full of photos she took in secret. But not of us, because the restraining order still stood. Elijah and I renewed our vows on Lily's 2nd birthday, barefoot on the same beach where we eloped. This time there were more people, friends, neighbors, even Brandon. He was clean, employed, and 3 years sober. He handed Lily a tiny wooden box he built himself. "Your first keepsake box," he told her. "One day you'll put something powerful in here." She smiled, not knowing that her very existence had already changed the world. If this story made you feel something, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of karma, courage, and cutting ties that don't serve you. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had to walk away from family to protect your peace? I'd love to hear your story.